Transmission, every fast food controversy begins. An idea that often haunts me as we spiral down the hole of late-stage capitalism is the fact that every mascot is essentially just a salesman in a silly costume. And just like any salesman, they got that big smile that says, "You can trust me. Trust that these fries will taste the same in Kansas as they will in Kuala Lumpur. Your $5 is definitely buying you some comfort right now, so don't think about any of the past or future catastrophes. But behind every single paper crown lies a corporate body count." And of course, their entire marketing department is built around making you forget that half of these companies have blood on their fryer baskets. So tonight, let's lift up the clown mask. Let's take a little peek at what lies behind. And let's start with the one who is already watching you sleep. Burger King. If fast food mascots had a horror subgenre, then the Burger King would definitely be found footage. The plastic face, the dead eyes, appearing uninvited beside your bed in the middle of the night. I mean, I guess that marketing campaign was fitting because the King has always somewhat reveled in discomfort. The first inkling of my own discomfort started way back in 2012 when there was a viral photo known as Burger King foot lettuce going around regarding a worker named Alex who stood ankle deep in some lettuce bins. It was a funny 4chan meme. He ended up getting fired for it. I actually learned that he died earlier this year, 2025. I told my brain-rotted kids and they were like, yeah, rip to a legend. And I agree. Rest in peace, Alex. A little later in 2013, we heard from across the pond about the European horse meat scandal, where Whoppers were discovered to contain some untraceable horse flesh instead of the guaranteed beef. Where did the horses come from? We don't know. They wandered into the slaughterhouse alongside the cows. It's really weird. That same year, management swore it was an isolated supply issue, just a little mix-up, but yeah, the pattern never stopped. It seems the King was able to keep his nose clean for a little while, but he popped back up in the news in 2022 with the Whopper lawsuit, where some people accused the brand of shrinking down their burgers while advertising them as full-sized feasts. Yes, they're no longer Whoppers. This used to be the Whopper Jr., but I guess that shrinkflation can even affect royalty, which is ironic if you think about it. A mascot built to sell excess was suddenly being sued for scarcity? The joke writes itself, honestly. Slap that in an Alanis Morissette song, isn't it ironic? But if Burger King taught us that corporations will lie straight to your face, one chicken vendor proved that they don't even need to, because we will fight amongst each other for the lie. Popeyes. A brand that built itself on fried comfort and southern charm, at least until August of 2019, when a single menu item set the entire country on fire. The Popeyes chicken sandwich was launched, and it immediately became a national experiment in mob psychology. People didn't just line up. They fought and stabbed and shot each other, one fatally in Maryland. Somebody also drove a car through a store, I believe. And all of this over a chicken sandwich. Probably a pretty good chicken sandwich, though. The company watched the chaos unfold. Popeye's executives smiled through this grease fire of free publicity. As morbid as it seems, every death or riot became another unpaid ad read. Somebody got punched in the mouth over that chicken sandwich? I want to try that chicken sandwich. You know what I mean? Eventually the hype died down. I believe the Boondocks also made an episode about it, which is just premium. But Popeyes popped up again in the news in May 2025 when all that manic energy finally hit their supply chain. There came a lawsuit from one of their chicken suppliers, ADP, and ADP accused Popeyes and its parent company, Restaurant Brands International, of buying and serving rotten meat across Toronto locations.
Yeah.
If it were me, I'd just stick with the poutine, eh? Popeyes was a brand built on spice and swagger, but yeah, now it was showcasing negligence, which would actively harm its own customers in order to increase their bottom line by just a little bit. But while it seems Popeyes has gone to great lengths to make chaos its brand, Wendy's doubled down on innocence, the corporate version of nothing to see here. Oh, but I disagree. Let's take a look. Wendy's. What Wendy's really sells is nostalgia. Pigtails, freckles, the smell of fresh burgers that never seen the inside of a freezer. It's the image of the honest American daughter, at least right up until she started poisoning people. In August 2022, an E. coli outbreak linked to Wendy's lettuce sickened 109 people and actually hospitalized 52. It didn't dominate the news cycle for very long. 52 people going to the hospital, what's that, good for like 2 days?
Meh.
Then we move on. The lawyers sweep it under the rug. Everything carries on as planned. Before long, the headlines fade away and all the ads start coming back again. And Wendy's keeps tweeting those mean tweets that everybody loves so well. At least back when it was actually an interesting or novel thing to do. That brings us to the Fair Food Program, which every other chain, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Burger King, they've all signed up for. It's a program intended to prevent farm workers from abuse. Wendy's didn't sign, even up until this day. It seems they would rather pay lawyers than laborers. Although, to be fair to them, it could be because of their past. Because back in 2005, a woman claimed to falsely find a finger in her chili. And I guess the lie landed because everybody found it plausible. Everybody was ready to believe that Wendy's was 100% capable of something that grotesque. But at the very least, Wendy's did pretend to be human the entire time. Taco Bell, on the other hand, has abandoned biology altogether. And that's what we'll talk about next. Taco Bell. I don't think anybody considers Taco Bell food. It's more like science fiction cuisine. Nothing that it sells exists in nature. And I guess that's sort of the point, because not even the commercials are showing farms or families or anything you might expect. It's just a purple haze and then a gong and, you know, the sound of late night regret echoing in Dolby surround sound. I'm so drunk, oh my god. Back in 2011, lawyers sued Taco Bell for false advertising. They argued that its beef contained so much filler that it barely qualified as meat. Taco Bell's response? Oh no, dude, it's just like a vibe, man. And they did win the right to keep on calling it beef. 35% is apparently how much beef you need to have to call it beef. And it was, of course, a legal victory that somehow made everything around us demonstrably worse for the perpetual future. Ugh. Hey, remember Burger King's horse meat? Well, Taco Bell did it too. Back in 2013. British Taco Bells serving up equine chalupas, you know? If I had to describe a complete culinary hellscape in just 3 words, I probably would pick British Taco Bell. God. Nobody really goes to Taco Bell to eat. You go there to feel like you're getting away with something, but the chalupa obelisk does not forgive. And I guess from there we'll tumble straight into KFC, a company that is haunted by the ghost of its own founder. KFC. The Colonel started with 11 herbs and a handshake, but what he left behind was sludge in a bucket and a brand that he openly despised. After Colonel Sanders sold the company, he became their loudest critic, calling the gravy sludge and the chicken goddamn slop. Imagine hating your own brand that much and being completely right. Using your entire life to build something up and then watching it turn to ash before your eyes. This is what usually happens with a payout, and oh, KFC's new owners knew something about payouts. Back in 2005, tragically, a 7-year-old girl was left brain damaged after eating contaminated KFC food. The company paid $8 million to settle, but yeah, how do you manage to settle that with your own conscience? A little less serious is an event in 2018 known as the chicken shortage fiasco. Hundreds of UK stores shut down because KFC just literally ran out of chickens. The Colonel's empire starved through bad logistics. There were also some viral videos that showed workers repackaging old food and slapping fresh stickers on yesterday's grease.
What do you want the world to know about KFC and Taco Bell? So you mean to tell me that the same stuff that you had in those cans all day, you put it back in there,
Yep.
put it in the freezer, and then you sell it to people
Yep.
tomorrow?
Yep.
Why do they do that?
I don't know. And it's cross-contaminated.
And do they do that with the mac and cheese too?
They sure do. And then...
Right here?
Yep.
And these are the empty things.
I can't even be surprised anymore. The Colonel once said that he never forgave what the company did to his recipe, and you kind of get the feeling that the company never really forgave him either. I guess that really is the curse of fast food, you know? Your founder becomes a mascot, and then your mascot becomes a lie, and eventually the lie starts talking back. Ooh, Subway learned that one the hard way. They didn't lose a mascot, really. They lost the entire face of the brand to prison time for some horrible, horrible crimes. Subway. Picture this. You are told that you can lose weight just by eating sandwiches. No exercise plan. We'll be your dietitian. We'll give you 12 inches of bread, allegedly, and hope, allegedly. That was the magic trick that Subway sold to the entire world, and Jared was the rabbit inside of the hat. He was the everyman. A mascot in flesh, a miracle story. A man lost 200 pounds. So you nod and believe and buy lunch and find out that 12 inches is really more of a suggestion. Back in 2013, the foot-long lawsuits were directed at Subway. Often the famous 12-inch sub clocked in closer to 11. I guess there's some shrinkage during baking. I could let it slide, but then some lab work comes back whispering punchlines about the chicken and the tuna. Mostly that in the chicken there is no chicken, and in the tuna there is no tuna. The entire menu is just a work of fiction with condiments dropped on top. And just when you think that it cannot get any worse, Jared, the final twist that no marketer in the world could ever spin. He was arrested and convicted in 2015 for possession of illicit images involving children. When they came out with their Eat Fresh slogan, I don't think anybody thought that it was going to end with time served. And you watch all that happen and just realize that even a mascot made of flesh is still just another mask. And once the masks start to slip off, you can see all of these monstrous corporations for what they are. Different faces, same rot. Domino's, for example. It went live on Facebook for the world to see. Domino's. This happened way back in 2009. 2 Domino's employees filmed themselves sneezing on pizzas and sliding foreign objects under the cheese. Pepperoni and paper clips. And of course, it went viral before TikTok was even a word that we used. And speed had always been Domino's religion. 30 minutes or less was not just a slogan, it was gospel. But inevitably, when you set a timer on things, well, someone is bound to crash the delivery car. And they did. Dozens of accidents, a couple lawsuits, and also one fatal crash later. Domino's quietly buried the promise that made it famous. I didn't come to Domino's expecting promises anyways, but some people did apparently, because back in 2014, a UK store was caught buying frozen potato wedges from Aldi and selling them as bacon hot potato wedges. Because if you're experiencing a supply shortage, why wouldn't you package up a competitor's product? The truth is that nobody cares about the contents of what's in the bag as long as it's got that sweet Domino's logo on it. They used to have a mascot too, but they had to do away with him. That mascot was known as the Noid. And yeah, back in the 80s he was everywhere, and he was meant to embody those delivery delays that caused free 30 minutes or less pizzas. And in 1990, a man named Kenneth Noid thought that the commercials were mocking him personally, and he ended up taking 2 employees hostage. Nobody was hurt. Kenneth Noid was sentenced to a mental institution, and he ended up taking his life only a few years later. A silly cartoon gag becomes a real-world breakdown with actual ramifications for a human being. And yet, the world keeps turning. I suppose Domino's just wanted to deliver joy in 30 minutes or less. What it delivered instead was proof that when you turn dinner into a stopwatch, well, someone is going to bleed for the brand. And while Domino's did initiate some widespread disaster, the next disaster is more personal. Papa John's didn't need a clown or a cartoon because the logo, the mascot, was John himself, a founder so desperate to be the mascot that he sort of forgot how to be human. Papa John's. John Schnatter played the mascot role perfectly for a while, the self-made apolitical pizza prophet. But then 2012 rolled around and things started to get weird. I mean, they got weird for everybody, but most CEOs managed to keep their mouths shut and understand that we're here to sell pizzas, not make a political statement. However, Papa John couldn't help but weigh in on Obamacare, and he claimed that it would force him to raise the price of pizzas. That's when you know you have your priorities together as a country, when your health care is able to be threatened by breadsticks. There didn't seem to be much backlash, definitely no lessons learned, because in 2017, here's Papa John again, blaming NFL player protests for poor sales. And if your pizza sauce depends solely on the national anthem, well, I don't know, maybe the sauce just wasn't that friggin' good. And then, of course, in 2018, yes, on a company call, Papa John used a racial slur. The stock tanks, and yeah, suddenly the man in those commercials is the villain in a lawsuit made by his own company. And now we just have this oily phantom hanging around, haunting the company that finally threw him out. Papa John's doesn't have a mascot anymore, just a ghost with a loyalty program. Which brings us to Chick-fil-A, a chain whose mascot is gentle cows, but whose corporate shadow is an absolute political machine. Chick-fil-A. The branding is impeccable, you know. Cows with a sign that says, "Eat more chicken!" It's like kind of a joke, but also sort of a threat. And behind that humor lies some serious money. Through the WinShape Foundation and some other channels, Chick-fil-A quietly funneled millions into organizations which were hostile to LGBTQ+ rights. Sometimes you're not just buying a sandwich, you're buying a belief system, and whatever your belief system is, I truly don't care. I'm just here to sell you pizzas. However, I do think that you should be aware of what you're buying into. Back in 2012, the political landscape looked completely different. Cancel culture was in full swing, and yes, they came after Chick-fil-A, and the COO, the founder's son, went on the radio and unapologetically declared support for quote-unquote traditional marriage. The crowds protested, and the media yelled and shook their fingers, but the sales didn't collapse. Instead, the brand became a case study in what happens when flavor and conviction find a common base. Some call it the first victory against cancel culture, and I don't think that's far from the truth. But not every chain out there sells salvation via scripture. Some sell it through buzzwords: organic, local, ethical. You know, the gospel of guilt-free late-stage capitalism. And yes, that is where Chipotle enters the sermon. Chipotle. They want you to believe in their foil-wrapped integrity, their farm-to-mouth honesty. It was fast food for people who thought they were too good for fast food, you see. And then 2015 happened. E. coli outbreaks stretched across multiple states, over 1,100 people sickened, headlines reading like plague bulletins, and it would be tragic if it weren't just so droll and routine at this point, because every few years there's another outbreak, another apology, another montage of guys, this time we learned our lesson. It's like Groundhog Day, but with more diarrhea. Even their small scandals carry the same DNA in their bones. In 2012, Chipotle got caught quietly rounding bills up to the nearest nickel in high-volume stores just to keep the line moving, they said. You and I would call that theft, but theft sounds so inefficient. They've reversed the policy since, but I want my 2 pennies back. Don't think I forgot, Chipotle. Then in 2024, we had a bit of a portion size controversy. There were viral videos of staff being forced to scoop less under new inventory rules. And now everybody at Chipotle pulls out their phone in order to film the staff making their burrito and perhaps peer pressure them into ladling on just a little bit more. Just what I need, an iPhone 25 with a boner attachment waving in my face while I'm just trying to make my $8 an hour. Thanks so much. And sometimes it's not just their dignity on the line, it's their lives. And that brings us to Jack in the Box, the brand that turned a kid's meal into a death certificate. Jack in the Box. The mascot is a man in a business suit with a ping pong ball for a head, stupid little hat, and a blank face which only pretends to care. Back in 1993, undercooked patties carrying E. coli tore through the West Coast where I grew up. 4 children died, hundreds were hospitalized. Jack never apologized. Jack never acknowledged it. The company just rebranded. They got cuter and made jokes about drive-through mishaps. Anything to bury the blood. And the saddest part of all is it worked. The world kept turning. There were some minor scandals that rolled through. Rumors about kangaroo meat somewhere in Australia being mixed in with the beef. I guess we shouldn't be surprised. I'm surprised it's not horses is what I'm surprised about. There was also the teriyaki bowls, try my bowls ad campaign.
What about these bowls, Jack?
Hey, you got some pretty nice bowls there, and so does Dan.
Thanks, Jack.
Those are some nice bowls.
Everyone's gonna want to get their hands on Jack's bowls.
Which happened during the Me Too movement, and yeah, like I said, that was a really weird time. Some very unfortunate timing from what I assume are some very out-of-touch advertising executives. That one Jack did apologize for, by the way. Nobody cared. They had already survived the worst PR imaginable, killing kids, and they managed to move on. If you think that's the end of the horror show, you'd be wrong. Our next act is a clean little cafe with a dirty little secret. Panera. Panera is presented to people as like a safe choice with clean ingredients, a bread lover's refuge from Greece. But that's all brand theater. The rot is both digital and chemical, and it sinks in deep. Back in 2018, Panera's website leaked millions of customer records. We're talking names, emails, actual addresses, even loyalty account info, all stored in plain text. And the crazy part is, security researcher Dylan Houlihan flagged this as a vulnerability in August of 2017, and the company brushed it off as probably a scam, and then they later confirmed the problem, but 8 months had passed before the site was fixed. So there you go, problem solved, right? No, it happened again in March of 2024.
Another one. And another one.
In August of 2025, the company agreed to a $2.5 million settlement. And you might say, wow, my Social Security is worth $2.5 million, and yeah, that's divided between 1 million employees. Take your $250 and get out of here. There's probably not 1 million employees, just to explain the joke too much. But the fun doesn't just stop with data leaks, of course. Panera had this drink. They called it Charged Lemonade. But in September of 2022, University of Pennsylvania student Sarah Katz died at 21 years old after consuming one. Her family claimed she had a heart condition and was not warned of the high caffeine, and other lawsuits did follow. Panera did remove the self-serve drink fountains, and eventually they discontinued the Charged line entirely. Panera promised you sanctuary, bread and soup and the quiet corner to lose your Social Security number in. The betrayal is in plain sight for each of our mascot offenders, but one stands head and shoulders above the rest. It is time for number 13. Let's talk about the clown. McDonald's. Yes, the biggest of all, that global smiling face, essentially the brand that taught every other chain how to be. If you think the scandals ahead are big, well then you're already behind. Back in 1994, the hot coffee lawsuit became folklore when an elderly woman in New Mexico sued McDonald's after spilling coffee on herself and suffering third-degree burns. The twist here was that McDonald's had known for years that their coffee was so hot that it could scald your skin off, yet they kept serving it that way to save on reheating costs, sacrificing the health of people who enjoy your product in order to pad your bottom line. But global scale means global hypocrisy, so let's talk about back in 2014, where McDonald's was implicated in a China expired meat scandal. Suppliers were allegedly repackaging expired beef and chicken, sometimes picking them up off the floors, relabeling, and just sending them back into the system. The globalization of humanity has truly put us deep into some uncanny territory, hasn't it? Speaking of, earlier still, in the early 2000s, there was a fries flavoring lawsuit which exposed that despite McDonald's claiming that they'd removed beef fat from their fry seasoning, the natural flavors still carried beef derivatives. Vegetarians and religious groups sued, and McDonald's settled out of court. So, yeah, you ate vegetarian fries that weren't vegetarian. All the while, the clown continued to smile and paid off those people with the profits that he'd collected. Ronald is everywhere. And I believe that's because he is the ringmaster, the final act. The spirit of Ronald never dies, it just changes costume. As it turns out, all of these mascots have been doppelgangers of each other from day one. So the next time you're picking a place to eat, don't try and ask me which one of these choices is safe. You have to ask yourself which lie you're most comfortable with buying. Next transmission remains TBD, but I'll let you know as soon as orders come in. In the meantime, support us on Patreon, join us on Discord, stay anomalous, stay deviant. Transmission ends. Moonpunk out.